teaching approaches that show feedback is the most powerful of the different approaches of teaching, because when he looked at his meta-analysis for the effects, it covers different aspects of, and this is to do with the teaching approach. So what he's saying is that that it's powerful when feedback is given, but it's not just from the teacher to the student. It's also very powerful when feedback is given to the teacher from the student. So in other words, that you become aware of what the pupil is thinking, why, what it gives you insights into why they think and what they do in a particular way, and also feedback to the teacher from other teachers. So when you get all of those things going on, that makes it extremely powerful. So if you're going to work in terms of that efficacy of teaching, where people are working together, then that would involve teachers giving feedback to other teachers, not just to students, and also students giving feedback to teachers. And that's not necessarily in a formal way, but it's giving children the opportunity for you to talk to them and ask questions and give them an opportunity to express why they've done something or why they think something. But there's another aspect. We've got the evidence that feedback is a single most potent teaching strategies that teachers can use, and this is with all ages and across all subjects, and research has shown that it gives an average academic gain of 29 percentile points, so very powerful. But there's a key word if we have a look here, and that is effectively. So giving feedback effectively, because while many teachers think they are providing regular quality feedback, students often disagree. And I think the differences in research were that 72% of teachers thought that they were giving this regular quality feedback, but only 40% of students agreed with that. So it's about what is effective. Because the aim of feedback is to close the gap between where the students are and where you want them to be. And so to do this, you need to let the students know how they're doing and also how they can improve. So I'm going to give you an example of a piece of writing with some feedback there. And if we look at the writing, it is instructional writing. It comes from a Year 2 class. And if we look at these instructions, you can see there's many things that are right about this, because the writers used the command verb, or the imperative verb, and has also used the present tense, and has mostly put full stops at the end of each of those sentences. Although I always think that sentences that fit on a line, it's easy to put a full stop at the end of the line, not quite so easy to get the full stop in the right place when the end of the sentence doesn't come at the end of the line. But however, I'm not sort of really wanting to be picky about that. But what I want you to do is just to think about that feedback, that written marking that child has received about the piece of writing that they have done. So what is your view of this feedback? Is it effective? It says, fabulous instructions, Katie. And then it says to go on to improve, to check your spellings on the word cards. Now, I think that this feedback could have been far more effective than this, because what it's doing, it's giving praise, fabulous instructions, but it's not actually really telling the student what they've done well and how they can improve it. The improving is about spellings on the cards, but this is a piece of writing. If you want to improve writing, it's more than just spelling. So this is an example that comes from the How to Give Feedback booklet, which I've put into the e-learning area. So if you were to say to a child, your paragraph isn't complete, and then gives a reason, you need to include a topic sentence, that would be considered feedback. However, if you were to say you've got 8 out of 10 on your spellings, that wouldn't be considered feedback, as it doesn't give the pupil any insight into how they could improve. To do that, you'd have to focus on the 2 words that weren't given correctly and some suggestions possibly of a strategy that you could use to get them right the next time. And what is interesting, and again in terms of, because of the kind of research that's looking into, marking is important, feedback is important, but we need to cut workload. And research has shown that when pupils are graded, and I suppose you could put into that as well, given praise for what they've done, as opposed to a specific focus on what they've done, that pupils actually just take notice of the grade or the positive comment. So Katie no doubt would have thought, well, she's done fabulous instruction, so that's all right, so she doesn't really need to think about it anymore. And we have at the moment, this is very new, 16th of June, some publicity in the TES about schools taking part in a marking without grading trial. Now this is for GCSEs, but I think the principles apply in Key Stage 2 as well. And what they're doing is, because of this notion that pupils are focusing on the grade or what is said in terms of praise or otherwise, which then helps to fix their mindset. So if they've got good praises, then their mindset is thinking, oh, I'm good, I'm better than other people. And if they're not getting the positive comments, then their mindset is, I can't do this. And this is called flash marking, and it's a scheme, it's a trial. There's a secondary school in Southport that's actually been doing this, and it's to see whether it will make a difference to GCSE students if they are not graded on their work, because what they want them to do is to focus on the feedback rather than the grade. So one thing I would say in terms of workload is, does feedback have to be written? It's the writing bit that takes the time. It's those books that you take home and sit down and write and make comments on, because it's probably far more effective to actually be given some verbal feedback whilst pupil is in the point of writing or shortly after the work has been done, and it doesn't always have to be written. If you think about why we want the written feedback, it's probably more to do with well, the Ofsted inspector will look at the books and want to see the marking comments, or the head teacher expects to see marking there. And I also read this week there's a story about a primary school where the head teacher is advertising a job where she says there's no planning and there's no marking, because she's got to a point of believing that it's not those things that actually make a difference in terms of effective teaching. But it is important to have feedback, but does it have to be written? Could there be something that you could try in your school? You're going to have some kind of written record at some point, but does it have to be on every piece of work that's done? And so on. And in the session I did about writing last time, I did go through how one school did their marking, which was the teacher would just read the pieces of writing, make some notes, and then focus a teaching on those areas and setting goals, clear criteria, and so on. So, and one of the things that Hattie said, that teachers would probably have much more success, say, improving boys' writing, if they address students' low self-efficacy before trying to raise their achievement. So in other words, their mindset. What we want is for pupils to have a growth mindset, that they might not be so good at that now, but we don't want them to continue to think that they will never be a good writer. And so you can also see the work that's been done by Carol Dweck on how they do this and how they promote this in the classroom. So